So my journey down the critical race theory nonsense path started a couple months back, even before. I've talked a lot about Chris Rufo on this channel and the work he's doing, and he's the dude basically responsible for Trump banning critical race theory in the federal government. But my journey down this path actually started like before that, when I got a DM on Twitter one day from someone who works at the city of Seattle, and he sent me all these documents about this crazy training that the city of Seattle was doing, in which they were segregating their employees, requiring their white employees to take one of their vacation days to do this crazy anti-racist training, and then making them go through and do these modules to admit that they were racist. Because this city of Seattle employee was not happy about this at all. Well, I ended up posting a copy of the email that he was sent on Twitter, and it ended up going viral. And I don't know if that was what spurred Chris Rufo to start looking into this, but he definitely mentioned it in his original Twitter thread way back before he was famous and a literal American hero. And so that was how I started really paying attention to this, was what was going on in the city of Seattle and how they were implementing this crazy racist training, which they referred to as internalized racial superiority training. Well, someone sent me this article just the other day from the Seattle Times. Want to fight racism? That makes you un-American in Trump's book. And I think we all know exactly how this article is going to go. I haven't read it yet. I thought that this would be a good opportunity to do my latest installment in my SJW crazy segment, where I basically choose some sort of social justice-y related article, and I do a reaction video to it. So we mock this article incessantly. We point out all of the ways in which they are blatantly lying to you, and we just have a good bit of fun with it, because really, like, if you can't have fun with the crazy town nonsense that's going on today, I just don't know what's wrong with you. So we're going to get a little glimpse into how the residents, or at least the media, in the city of Seattle is reacting to Trump's war on critical race theory. But before we do that, folks, I have a goal. My goal is to get to 100,000 subscribers by election day. Now, a couple months ago, I was on track to actually meet that goal at the end of September, and then YouTube brought the smackdown on my channel and started suppressing content and unsubscribing people and doing all sorts of crazy nonsense shenanigans. And so I still think we're going to make it, but I need your help. It's going to be a close call. If you enjoy the content I'm putting out, please consider subscribing to my channel, pushing that little the red subscribe button that's right down there somewhere, turning on notifications, making sure if you think you're subscribed, making sure you're still subscribed. I post daily content around news, politics, culture, lots of critical race theory stuff. So if I'm not showing up on your YouTube and you think you're subscribed, it's probably because YouTube has pulled some shenanigans, and you just want to make sure to double check. But I know we can meet the goal, and then I can have bragging rights, and I can get my little plaque, and then I can retire and never do YouTube again. Probably won't retire, but I could if I wanted to. All right, let's read this article. Watch out, Seattle. There is a totalitarian cult indoctrination underway to promote toxic propaganda through anti-American re-education camps. What is this insidious force? Anti-racism training and education. Now, you guys know, if you've watched my videos before, that the term anti-racism is an Orwellian term. That means it means the opposite of what it says. So anytime you see anti-racism, you have to think racism. That is what this training teaches. Trump's executive order specifically bars teaching that one race is superior to any other race. That's what the executive order bars. So anytime they're fighting against Trump's executive order and in favor of this anti-racism training, what this training literally teaches is that white people are superior to every other race, which is, of course, is nonsense. It's BS and should not be taught anywhere, and certainly not funded by taxpayer dollars. Yes, the latest target in Trump's administration culture war is attacking previously obscure academic disciplines like critical race theory and trainings designed to unpack and dismantle our country's legacy of racism. Another thing that Trump's executive order bans is essentially teaching that America is a fundamentally racist country, which, no, we should not be teaching that. And frankly, I hope he goes even one step further after the election and he bans it from schools as well. The topic even came up at the debate with the president saying anti-racist trainings lead people to hate our country. And they do. Part of the problem that we have in this country right now is that the people who are out protesting have been taught for years and years and years, probably from the time they were little kids, that America is a bad place, that America doesn't have opportunity. And this is fundamentally incorrect. And it is also damaging to teach people that they live in a oppressive nation rather, and that they don't have access to opportunity. Listen, one of the things that is a primary driver, this is going to sound really oversimplified, one of the things that is a primary driver of individual success and individual achievement is believing that success is a possibility. Just think about that for a second. If you don't believe that you can be successful at something, then why would you go after it? And again, this might sound really simple, but I think back to when before I wrote my first book and before I got my book deal, even like at that time, even getting a book deal seemed so impossible to me. It seemed like this thing that was so far out of reach because I didn't want just like a rinky-dink book deal. I wanted a book deal with like a major publishing house, right? And so that seemed like an impossibility for me for so long. And so what happened when I thought that that was impossible? Well, I dragged my feet. I procrastinated. I didn't do the things that were required to get me a book deal. I didn't go find an agent. I didn't really write a book proposal that was a serious book proposal. I didn't do the things that were required. The thing that jolted me into reality to believe that it was possible was that I gave a talk at South by Southwest, and it was people really liked it. They really responded to it. And I had all these publishing houses coming up to me afterwards, like giving me their card and saying, Carlin, we want you to talk to you about writing a book. You should write a book. You need to write a book. So all of a sudden, this thing that seemed impossible all of a sudden seemed possible. Now, that very night, right after my presentation, I reached out to just a couple of agents that had repped authors that were similar to what I wanted to do. And I said, hey, here's who I am. Here's what just happened. I have all of these publishing houses that want to talk to me. Will you help me? And I immediately got an agent. And that agent ended up getting me a book deal with an imprint under Penguin Random House, which was exactly what I wanted. And that would not have been possible if I hadn't had that jolt to see that success is possible. Now, that's a really specific case that obviously only applies to me, but think about how insidious this is for a second to teach an entire generation of people that maybe don't come from backgrounds where they do have they do have access to opportunity that is more readily accessible, and you're teaching them that they're oppressed and they're never going to be able to get ahead in this country. Well, then they're never going to see it as a possibility. Let's keep going. It may sound like just another rhetorical volley to rally the base. No. But it's become much more than that. In late August, the U.S. Department of Justice took aim at the anarchist jurisdiction of Seattle's racial justice training led by the Seattle Office for Civil Rights, questioning whether it violated civil rights. Yes, it does. You want to know why? Because the Office Seattle for Civil Rights is literally segregating people for this training. They're segregated. That fundamentally violates their civil rights. Then in early September, the U.S. Office of Management and Budget sent a memo to instruct federal agencies to stop any training they considered divisive and un-American. Well, it actually said more than that. It had a very specific definition for what types of trainings should no longer be scheduled. Last week, the administration went further and issued guidance to clarify the implementation of the earlier memo and a subsequent executive order by the president. Under the guidance, not only do federal agencies need to examine their own trainings to eliminate what the White House deems divisive content, but agencies are instructed within 90 days to report to OMB all trainings by contractors on diversity and inclusion and review the training to ensure forbidden concepts are not discussed by contractors or anyone receiving grant money under penalty of possible suspension or disbarment. They make this sound so insidious. Listen, this is like if we had they want thunder and lightning in the background, look what Trump is doing now. He wants everyone to be a racist. That's not what this is. This training specifically forbids you from teaching racist nonsense. This guidance also suggests agencies search for terms such as critical race theory, white privilege, intersectionality, and systemic racism. Other words they could search for are anti-racist, internalized racial superiority, allyship, microaggressions. Those are other terms they could search for that would all lead up to this crazy town training. Much of the ire from the White House centers on the concept of critical race theory. So I asked Edwin Guillermo Lindo, a Seattle community organizer, critical race theory scholar. Oh, here we go. An educator who teaches at UW School of Medicine to help break down the concept. All right, let's do it. Let's break down critical race theory according to the Seattle Times. At its core, Lindo says, critical race theory is a framework to help us articulate, interrogate, and dismantle systems of oppression. Using a medical analogy, he said that racism is a pathology, and that's forbidden from being taught in the federal government. I hope Lindo here doesn't like any federal grant money, because he ain't getting it after this. Something abnormal that gives rise to a disease. Dude, you are teaching that racism is innate to human beings, and that is simply fundamentally not true. Listen, guys, let me just make it very, very simple for you. If you're new to my videos, maybe you haven't watched any other videos on critical race theory, let me make it very simple to you. If you do not believe that you are born racist purely based on the color of your skin, then you do not support teaching critical race theory. That is literally what critical race theory teaches. It teaches that all white people are born racist and that they have to spend their entire lives overcoming their whiteness, and that they have to pay to go to workshops constantly to overcome their whiteness. Now, they will never not be racist. This is literally what this teaches. They will never not be racist purely because of the way that white people are raised in this country, but they have to spend the lifetime doing the work to overcome their whiteness. That is what this theory teaches, and is BS. Critical race theory says that, like a disease, racism perpetuates itself. If you don't actively treat it or do something to interrupt it and deconstruct it, it will go on forever because it is systemic. Oh God, he looks exactly like you expect him to look too. And I'm not talking about the fact that he's black. I'm talking about the fact that he looks like an activist. It has nothing to do with his race. The administration directives echo an earlier time, Lindo says. If you read the executive order, I would bet all the money in my bank account this guy has not read the executive order. Trump is effectively taking us... No matter how often I react to some of these articles, it never ceases to amaze me how crazy these people are. Trump is effectively taking us back to the 1940s and 50s with the Red Scare. No, dude. It's you who's taking us back to the 1940s and 1950s. It is not Trump. Trump is trying to get us to go forward so that we don't teach people that America is a fundamentally racist country. He's repackaging it and effectively saying people who do critical race theory are un-American. While you certainly don't believe in the American values as outlined in the Constitution, that is for dang sure. He then says, we want to know who is teaching these things. So now they want a list. The same thing they did in the 1950s. No. No one has asked for a list. They have asked for these trainings to be stopped and for the agencies to report that these trainings are not going on. That's what they've asked for. They're going to make a list of people who teach critical race theory, and I believe they will use that list to bully or cause some serious harm. This guy is actually insinuating. Hang on, pause. This guy is actually insinuating that the government is going to assassinate people who teach critical race theory nonsense. Have you lost your mind? The chilling effect is already happening. Yes, it is. The Veterans Administration canceled the diversity training in Florida. The Environmental Protection Agency delayed a speaker series on environmental racism. The Education Department is reviewing employee activities for signs of anti-American propaganda. Other agencies are scrambling to understand the ramifications of the order and how it will affect them. Oh my God, isn't it beautiful? Isn't it beautiful? You love to see it. Locally, institutions that receive federal funding, like the University of Washington, are concerned about the order and are evaluating their next steps. And they should be. Guys, public colleges and universities get millions from the federal government. And I believe that what this order actually goes after are it's grant money. Specifically, I don't think it goes after all of the university federal funding, but again, I've said this in a couple of videos now, I do believe that if Trump gets reelected, he will do that next. I mean, that just makes sense to me. It is the logical next place to go. The action taken by the Trump administration might alarm many people who think there is time to educate people about race and racism as long as it's overdue, but Relina Joseph, the director for University of Washington Center of Communication Difference, the University of Washington has a Center for Communication Difference and Equity. Of course they do. I don't even know why I'm surprised by that. And a professor in the Department of Communications said, in some ways, the actions by the Trump administration is a sign that the recent movement for racial justice is making progress. Well, I hope she enjoys her grant money while it lasts, because she's going to lose her grant money as well. After the killing of George Floyd, Joseph says, our world actually started to understand the realities of anti-Black violence, and it was not just Black, Indigenous, and people of color, folks, BIPOC. That was what they're replacing, BIPOC. There are lots of white people who were gutted by this murder, and actually seeing this murder on their screens over and over again, and that's when all the requests for training started to come in. Let's just be clear. No one thought the killing of George Floyd was a positive thing. Now, additional information has come out since that happened. You could have your opinions on that. I still think that the officers did not behave appropriately. I know a lot of you are going to disagree with me. I don't really give a flip. Like, I do not think they behaved appropriately. I think there was many other ways that they could have handled that situation that did not involve having his knee on that dude's neck for 9 flipping minutes. I think it could have been handled differently, and I do think that they should be charged. Now, what's going on in Minneapolis, side note, is that the dude's definitely going to get off, because there's absolutely no way in this universe that they're going to be able to prove murder too. And then we'll have to go through all this again because they're deliberately sabotaging this prosecution. But no one, when George Floyd died, it was a tragedy, and everyone agreed on that. And that is when you could have had an honest conversation about race in this country. And what did they do? They decided to fund the police instead, to go the most insane possible route, because these people are insane. Their goals don't matter. Bringing people together and having conversations and moving forward together as a society does not matter. And this is why, listen, I've thought a lot about my contributions to these situations in the past couple weeks, because I know I've been getting extra uppity. I'm stressed out. I'm traveling all the time. It's gotten a lot harder. And I've really thought about, like, am I contributing in a productive way to this conversation when I'm doing things like having a segment called SJW Crazy, where I'm reading crazy SJW articles and making fun of them? And, you know, I mean, honestly, if I'm being honest, I probably could contribute better to this situation, but I just don't want to. This is where I'm at right now with this situation. These people are nuts. They do not want to be reasoned with, and you can't reason with people that don't want to be reasoned with. The only thing that you can do is to do your best to manage your own stress and do what you can to try to wake other people up that are actually reasonable people. And there are reasonable people out there. Let's finish up this article. Joseph said to see so many white people engaged in the racial justice movement was terrifying to those who wanted to preserve the status quo. Their understanding the world is shifting. No. Listen, nothing is stopping any white person from doing anything that they want. What they are saying is that if your employer wants that sweet federal money, then they cannot provide you with this training. But can you, as a white person, or as a, like, whatever color really, go out and do anti-racist training on your own? You sure can. Nothing is stopping you from doing this if you want to do it. They're simply saying that our federal dollars are not going to pay for it. So you want free training? You're SOL, man. Go pay for the $2,500 dinners where you get to be told by a black woman that you're a racist white lady. Pay for it by your flipping self. And those do actually exist, by the way. I'm not making that up. That is a real thing. Critical race theory is not indoctrination. It's the truth. Dude, for people who talk about lived experiences and their truth being different than the rest of the truth, then how can we have an absolute truth being critical race theory? That truth is actually getting out to people, and that truth is powerful, and that truth is going to shift lots of folks into action, and not just interpersonal, but actual structural, institutional action, organizational action. Listen. I got an email a couple months ago from a woman who was forced to go through this type of training by her employer, and she emailed me and said, Carlin, I had to do this training. I had to read White Fragility. I got really depressed after this because what this taught me is that I am racist and I can never overcome my racism. And I got really depressed and I didn't know what to do. And then I saw you talking about white fragility on your channel. And you were the only person who I had heard from that told me that I was not a racist. That's terrifying. This training, I might make fun of this, and really it's the very best way that I can cope with this is to make fun of it. But this training is harmful to individuals, and it is harmful to teams, it is harmful to organizations. There is no evidence that this works, and these people are twisting what this is. There is not an ounce of truth in this article. This is an opinion piece. This is under local news. This is an opinion piece. This is a perspective. This is information that's been twisted and willfully distorted so it doesn't resemble anything close to the truth. And this is what these people do, and this is why it's dangerous, and this is why we need to continue to fight back at every turn. If you can speak up, and I know not all of you can, but if you can speak up, then you need to speak up. All right, guys, that's all I got for this one. I'll see you soon.